She brought her lover to what she called our reconciliation dinner, and, right there in front of everyone, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You were a mistake." The entire restaurant went silent for a split second, and then I heard the whispers, the muffled laughs, the sound of phones being pulled out. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't even flinch. I just nodded, because she didn't realize the real bill for that night wouldn't just be the one the waiter brought. I'm telling you this story not just because it's one of the hardest nights of my life, but because of what came after. If you enjoy stories of karma, revenge, and turning heartbreak into strength, make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss the next ones I've got lined up. That night started like something out of a rom-com. She had texted me a few days earlier. "Let's meet at La Riviera. I think we should try again." La Riviera wasn't just any restaurant. It was our place. It was where I took her on our anniversary, where we celebrated promotions, where we'd clink glasses of wine and talk about the future. So, yeah, when I got that text, my heart jumped. I thought maybe the fights, the coldness, the distance, maybe it was all about to change. That I remember I even ironed my best shirt. The one she once said made me look put together. On the way there, I rehearsed what I'd say if she apologized. Something forgiving, something hopeful. I even pictured us walking out of the restaurant hand in hand, ready to try again. But when I walked in, I didn't see the woman I married. I saw a stranger. She was glowing, but not for me. She was leaning against him. Some tall, gym-built guy with that smug, half-smile men wear when they think they've won something. And then she dropped the bomb. "Everyone, meet the man I should have been with all along," she announced. "This is a real man. Not the mistake I married." It was like someone had taken a bat and swung it straight at my chest. I could feel the eyes on me. Waiters frozen mid-step, couples at nearby tables trying not to stare too obviously, and the sharp glow of phones pointed my way. One girl was already whispering, "Are you recording this?" I wanted to vanish, to disappear under the table and never come back. But something inside me, some tiny part of me, told me not to give her the satisfaction. I kept my face calm. I nodded. I even pulled out her chair for her and the guy, like I was their waiter, and sat down across from them. And the silence. Oh, the silence was louder than any yelling could have been. She smirked, thinking she had broken me. He chuckled, thinking he had stolen my life. And I just watched. Because in that very moment, a seed was planted in my mind. They thought this was the end of my story. But it was only the opening scene. That I listened as she laughed too loudly at his dumb jokes. I watched her flip her hair the way she used to do for me. I noticed how quickly he reached for the wine list, like he was already living off my paycheck. And I realized, she hadn't just betrayed me. She had underestimated me. I excused myself to the restroom halfway through, not because I was about to cry, but because I needed a minute to breathe and think. And in that bathroom, staring into the mirror, I made a decision. I wouldn't fight her there. I wouldn't give her the show she wanted. I wouldn't flip the table or storm out. No, I would let her have her moment. Because when the time came, my moment would last a whole lot longer. When I walked back to the table, she raised her glass and said loudly, "Here's to moving on." People clapped awkwardly. Phones caught the toast, and I clinked my glass with theirs, smiling like the perfect fool. Inside, though, I was already planning, because if she thought she had humiliated me in that restaurant, she had no idea what kind of storm she had just unleashed. When I finally left the restaurant that night, I didn't slam the door or shout after her. I just walked out into the cool night air, my shirt still smelling like their expensive wine. My phone buzzed with messages, not from her, but from friends who had already seen clips spreading online. I didn't even open them. I couldn't. The humiliation was too fresh, too raw. Driving home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Every red light felt like a spotlight. Every honk from another driver sounded like laughter. I kept hearing her words on repeat in my head. "This is a real man. You were a mistake." I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, but I refused to cry. I wouldn't give her that victory, not even in the privacy of my car. When I walked into our house, it felt wrong. Everything was still in place. Her shoes by the door, the half-empty bottle of perfume on the counter, the framed wedding photos smiling down from the wall, but it already felt like she didn't live there anymore. Or maybe it was me who didn't belong. I sat on the couch in the dark, no TV, no sound, just me and the echo of what had just happened. I stayed that way for hours, replaying every little detail of the dinner. Her smirk, his laugh, The way people at the restaurant pretended not to stare but couldn't look away. And the more I replayed it, the clearer it became. She hadn't just embarrassed me. She wanted to destroy me. She wanted me broken so badly that I would never recover. But here's the thing. I don't break easy. The next morning, I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't even block her. I wanted her to think I was sitting at home, devastated, doing nothing. I wanted her to underestimate me, because that's when people make their biggest mistakes. Instead, I opened my laptop and started digging. First, I looked at our joint bank account. And there it was, almost screaming at me from the screen. Repeated charges to a high-end gym, spa appointments, luxury dinners, and consulting fees to some random LLC I'd never heard of. Thousands of dollars gone. She wasn't just cheating on me with this guy. She was funding his lifestyle with our money. That discovery hit harder than anything she said at the restaurant. Because betrayal in love is one thing, but betrayal in trust, betrayal in the very foundation of a marriage, that cuts deeper. I printed every single statement. Page after page, line after line. Each one a brick in the wall I was quietly building against her. I'll be honest, a part of me still wanted to scream. To go back to that restaurant and flip every table until someone dragged me out. But the smarter part of me, the colder, quieter part, kept whispering, patience. Don't waste this chance. Later that week, she texted me once. Hope you're doing okay. I'm staying at Ryan's for a while. Ryan. So now the lover had a name. I stared at the message for a full minute, then archived it without replying. I didn't want her words. I wanted her actions. Actions leave trails. And her trail was getting clearer by the day. I went to a lawyer. I didn't walk in like a heartbroken husband begging for help. I walked in like a client ready to fight smart. The lawyer listened, nodded, and said, "We'll need documentation. Receipts. Evidence. You've already started, so keep going. The calmer you play this, the stronger your case will be." That was exactly what I wanted to hear. I left the office that day with a folder and a fire in my chest. For the first time since that awful dinner, I felt in control. I had a plan forming, one she would never see coming. Because while she thought she had ended my story with a glass of wine and a cruel line in front of strangers, she had actually given me the perfect beginning. And I was about to make sure the ending was mine. The thing about betrayal is that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every small detail that seemed normal before suddenly looks suspicious. Every bill, every text, every random purchase, it all becomes evidence. And I was collecting, quietly, patiently. I spent nights going through our online statements, printing, highlighting, building a timeline. It wasn't just dinners and spa trips. It was transfers, money moving into some consulting company with Ryan's name attached to it. Except here's the twist. The company didn't exist. At least not in any official sense. No registration, no tax records, nothing. Just a shell. A hole my wife was pouring cash into. That was the first sign that Ryan wasn't who he pretended to be. I started digging deeper. A quick search turned up more than I expected. Unpaid debts, failed business ventures, angry reviews on local forums calling him a scammer. He wasn't a real man like she had bragged in the restaurant. He was a con artist dressed in muscles and fake confidence. And now, thanks to her blind devotion, she was part of his scam. It made my blood boil, but it also gave me clarity. She wasn't just cheating. She was digging herself a hole, and she had handed me the shovel to cover it back up, or bury her in it. One night, while she was still at Ryan's, I walked into the closet and looked at the neat row of clothes she'd left behind. Designer handbags, shoes lined up like soldiers, dresses with the tags still hanging. I realized those weren't just clothes anymore. They were assets. And if I played my cards right, they'd soon be mine. The next morning, I called my lawyer again. I explained everything I had found. The transfers, the fake business, the money trail. He leaned back in his chair, adjusted his glasses, and said, "You've got leverage. Strong leverage. Keep documenting. Don't confront her yet. Let her keep spending. The more rope she takes, the easier it'll be to tie the knot legally." That advice stuck with me, because every instinct in my body wanted to scream at her, to storm into Ryan's apartment and drag her out by the truth. But instead, I chose silence. Silence is louder than rage if you know how to use it. Meanwhile, her messages to me became shorter, colder. "I'll pick up some of my things soon. Don't wait up. Ryan and I are thinking of traveling for a while." Traveling. With my money. I played dumb. I sent back nothing but a thumbs up or a short, okay. Let her think I was broken, passive, harmless. Let her think she had already won. Because the second she stopped paying attention to me was the moment I could move freely. A week later, my suspicions were confirmed. She walked into the house while I was at work, except I had left my car parked down the street and came back early on foot. From the hallway, I listened as she rummaged through drawers, stuffing jewelry and documents into a bag. And then I heard her on the phone with Ryan. "Don't worry, baby," she said sweetly. "He's too weak to fight. We'll have everything we need soon." That line hit me like a spark to gasoline. Weak? No, I wasn't weak. I was waiting. She left the house smiling, thinking she was in control. I waited until the door shut, then walked straight into the living room and sat down with my folder of evidence. My hands were steady now, my breathing calm. For the first time since the restaurant, I felt something powerful, certainty. She wanted to build a future with a fraud? Fine, I would let her. But I would also make sure the cost of that choice landed squarely on her shoulders. And when the time came, she would learn the hard way that the man she called a mistake was the one who held all the cards. If silence was my weapon, paperwork was my shield. And I was about to use both. The morning after I caught her raiding the house for jewelry, I went to the bank. Not in a rush, not in a panic, calm. The kind of calm that comes when you know the game is shifting in your favor. I sat across from a banker I'd known for years and asked a simple question. What's the fastest way to separate my finances from a joint account without alerting the other party immediately? She gave me a look, then leaned in and whispered, "Divorce?" I didn't answer. I just slid the folder of statements across the desk. She flipped through the pages, eyebrows climbing higher with each highlighted transaction. "You've got grounds," she finally said. "We can move your direct deposits to a new account today. She won't have access." And just like that, one trap was set. My paychecks would no longer be feeding Ryan's consulting empire. That night, when she tried to book a hotel with our card, I got the notification. Declined. She texted me 5 minutes later. "Card's not working. Fix it." I replied with one word, "Handled." I could almost picture her face twisting in frustration. She wanted me to panic, to beg her forgiveness, to keep the money flowing. Instead, I was cutting her off little by little, like tightening a valve until the pressure built so high she wouldn't know what hit her, but money wasn't enough. I needed more. So I called the lawyer again and told him about the jewelry, the fake business, the bag of documents she tried to take. He smiled thinly and said, "Keep a record. Every message, every attempt, every dollar. The court doesn't care about broken hearts. They care about evidence." And I was swimming in evidence. Meanwhile, she kept flaunting her new life. Her social media turned into a highlight reel of dinners, selfies at the gym, cocktails by the pool. Ryan was always there in the background, flexing like a budget movie star. I watched it all, not with jealousy, but with the cold amusement of someone watching a fire spread in slow motion. Because what she didn't realize was that every picture, every caption, every tagged location was a breadcrumb. Proof of where the money was going, who it was benefiting, and how reckless they were being. One photo in particular stood out. She was wearing a diamond necklace I hadn't seen before. New, expensive. The caption read, "Spoiled by my man." Except the credit card bill told a different story. It wasn't Ryan who spoiled her. It was me. Or rather, the account she thought she still controlled. That was the breaking point for me. Not the necklace itself, but the smugness of pretending it came from him. I printed that photo and added it to my growing stack. I wasn't just building a case anymore. I was building a weapon. And then I set the next trap. I canceled her access to our shared streaming services, the small, everyday luxuries she used constantly. Netflix, Spotify, even the grocery delivery app. One by one, she found herself locked out. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. Because every time she had to text me, "Why can't I log in?" And I replied, "Must be a glitch." She grew angrier, more careless, more desperate. She thought she was bleeding me dry. In reality, I was cutting off her oxygen, one breath at a time. The final move that week was subtle but devastating. I updated the beneficiaries on my insurance policies, removing her name completely. I left a copy of the confirmation letter on the kitchen counter, right where she'd find it when she came to grab more of her things that I didn't need to be there to see her reaction. I could imagine it perfectly. The realization that, for the first time, she wasn't in control anymore. Because the man she called a mistake was quietly turning into her biggest one. It didn't take long for her confidence to start slipping. It first. It was just little things. A late-night text. Did you change something with the account again? Another one. Ryan's card isn't going through either. What's happening? I ignored most of them, replying only once with a vague, talk to the bank. I wanted her scrambling for answers she'd never find. Her social media posts slowed down too. No more fancy dinners, no spa check-ins, no spoiled by my man captions. Instead, blurry selfies at home, captions about staying low-key. Low-key wasn't her style. That told me something was breaking behind the scenes. And then it came. The first phone call. Why are you doing this? She snapped the moment I picked up. No hello, no small talk, just pure anger. You're embarrassing yourself. You think this is going to hurt me? Ryan and I are fine. Better than fine. We don't need you. I let her rant. She wanted a reaction, but I gave her nothing. When she finally paused for air, I said calmly, glad to hear it, and hung up. Silence. That was my favorite move, but her silence didn't last long. The very next day, Ryan himself tried. He called from a number I didn't recognize, his voice all puffed up with fake bravado. Listen, man, he said. Why don't you stop making this difficult? She's with me now. You're only dragging this out. I almost laughed. This was the guy she left me for? A wannabe tough guy begging me to hand him the life he couldn't earn himself? Good luck, I told him, and ended the call. The truth was, they were already running low. Without my money feeding their lifestyle, the cracks were starting to show. I heard it in their tone, saw it in the sudden absence of flashy photos, felt it in the urgency of their calls. But the real confirmation came a week later when she showed up at the house unannounced. She didn't knock politely this time. She barged in, angry, tossing her hair like she owned the place. You think you're clever, don't you? She spat, cutting me off, freezing the cards, embarrassing me in front of everyone. You're pathetic. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, and said nothing. Just watched her. The silence got under her skin faster than any insult could. Her voice cracked as she screamed. You were supposed to roll over and give me what I deserve. That's when I realized. She wasn't angry because I hurt her. She was angry because I refused to play the part she had written for me. She wanted the broken husband, the crying man begging for scraps of her affection. Instead, she was staring at someone colder, stronger, someone who didn't need her approval anymore. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. I picked up one that had fallen, our wedding photo, and set it face down on the shelf. That chapter was over. But for her, the nightmare was just beginning, because what she didn't know was that I had already spoken to her parents earlier that week. They had no idea what she'd been up to, no idea about Ryan, no idea she was draining accounts into a fake business. When I laid out the facts, calmly, with documents in hand, the disappointment on their faces said it all. We'll talk to her, her father had said quietly. This isn't who she is. But it was. And the fact that they were now watching her every move only added more pressure to the house of cards she'd built. I wasn't finished tightening the net. Not even close. But watching her world shrink, piece by piece, while I stood steady. That was the first taste of victory, and it was addicting. The thing about control is that once you taste it, you don't let it go. By now, I wasn't just reacting, I was orchestrating. Every move I made was deliberate, every piece of evidence carefully stacked, every silence perfectly timed. And the best part? They still thought they were winning. I spent hours in my lawyer's office that week. The folder of documents I'd started back in the early days had grown into a binder thick enough to slam down on the desk with authority. Bank statements, screenshots of her posts, records of her withdrawals, proof of Ryan's fake business. It was all there, organized and undeniable. This is strong, my lawyer said, flipping through page after page. The financial misconduct alone will work in your favor. And the fact that she's channeling money into someone else's name? Courts don't take kindly to that. We can build a case that leaves you clean and her responsible. That was exactly what I wanted. Not just freedom from her, but freedom with security. My assets, my future, untouched. But while I was tightening my legal grip, Ryan was starting to slip. I knew it because he called again. This time, he didn't sound smug. He sounded stressed. Look, man, I don't know what game you're playing, but you can't just cut her off like this. She deserves support. She's your wife. Wife. The word almost made me laugh. He had no problem sleeping with her, draining our money, parading her around like a trophy. But the second the cash stopped flowing, suddenly I was supposed to step up as the husband. "I don't owe you a dime," I said flatly, and hung up. That's when it hit me. Ryan wasn't angry because of her. He was angry because of himself. He was running out of resources. Without me, his little empire was crumbling. And she, blinded by infatuation, couldn't even see it. Later that week, she came storming into the house again. No bag this time, no attempt to play nice. Just pure frustration. "You're ruining everything," she shouted. "Ryan is under so much pressure because of you. He had a deal lined up, and now it's falling apart because you froze the accounts." I raised an eyebrow. A deal? That was rich. I'd seen the so-called business he was running. It wasn't a deal. It was a scam, and she was his biggest investor. "You chose him," I said quietly. "Now live with it." That silence between us was like a canyon. She wanted me to explode, to argue, to give her energy. But all I gave her was a calm wall she couldn't climb. Eventually, she threw up her hands and stormed out again, slamming the door like that was her victory. Except it wasn't, because the very next day, my lawyer filed the first official paperwork for divorce. Clean, sharp, and full of evidence. Her name on the petition would be tied to every dollar she funneled into Ryan's mess that I didn't tell her. Not yet. I wanted her to keep thinking she had time, that she could manipulate her way back into control. The shock would be sweeter when she realized the ground had already been cut from beneath her. Meanwhile, Ryan's name started popping up in local chatter. Mutual acquaintances mentioning unpaid debts, a canceled lease, whispers of him owing favors he couldn't deliver. Piece by piece, his image was cracking, and she was tied to him like an anchor that I wasn't chasing them anymore. I was letting gravity do the work. All I had to do was stay steady, keep my paperwork clean, and wait for the perfect moment to show my hand. And that moment was getting closer with every mistake they made. The first real crack in her confidence came not from me, but from Ryan himself. That I didn't have to dig for the information. It practically fell into my lap. A mutual acquaintance texted me late one evening. "Isn't your wife with that guy Ryan? Just so you know, he got thrown out of his last apartment for not paying rent. Word is, he owes money all over town." I stared at the message, half amused, half unsurprised. Of course he did. It was only a matter of time before his glossy act wore off. What shocked me wasn't his downfall. It was that she couldn't see it. Or maybe she didn't want to. That weekend, she showed up again, but this time she wasn't angry. She was nervous. Her hair was messy, her eyes darting around like she was searching for answers on the walls. "We need to talk," she said, trying to sound firm, but her voice cracked halfway through. I let her in and waited. "Ryan's been under a lot of stress," she started. "People are spreading lies about him. They're jealous. They don't understand how successful he is." I leaned against the counter and said nothing. I wanted her to hear how hollow her own words sounded without me interrupting. Finally, she dropped the act. Her shoulders slumped, and she whispered, "We just need some help. Just for a little while." There it was. The panic that I almost laughed at the irony. A few weeks ago, she was standing in a restaurant, calling me a mistake in front of strangers. Now she was back in my kitchen, practically begging for support. "Help?" I repeated slowly. "After everything?" Her eyes flashed with a mix of anger and desperation. "I made a mistake, okay? But I can fix this. We can fix this." The "we" in that sentence made me want to roll my eyes. There was no "we" anymore. There was me, calm, steady, in control. And there was her, sinking fast with the con artist she'd chosen. "I'm done fixing your mistakes," I said finally, my voice steady. Her face hardened, but the panic didn't leave. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, muttering something about how I'd regret this. But the truth was, regret was her burden now. A few days later, I got confirmation of just how bad things were for them. Ryan showed up at my work. Not in person, but in the parking lot, pacing, red in the face. I watched from my office window as he argued with someone on the phone, his hands flying through the air like he was trying to fight off invisible enemies. He looked nothing like the smug man from the restaurant. He looked small, weak, cornered. And then came the message from her later that night. "Can we meet? Just us. Please." For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But then I realized, this was the turning point. She wasn't reaching out to gloat anymore. She wasn't in control. She was desperate, clinging to the last branch before the fall. I agreed to meet. Not because I wanted her back, but because I wanted her to see exactly who she had lost. When we sat across from each other at a small cafe, she looked nothing like the woman from the flashy Instagram posts. No makeup, no designer clothes, just a tired, pale face trying to hold itself together. "You don't understand," she said softly. "Ryan's just going through a hard time. But I love him. I can't leave him like this." I sipped my coffee and let her talk. Every word was another thread unraveling in her story. She wasn't trying to convince me. She was trying to convince herself. And as I watched her struggle to keep the fantasy alive, I realized something. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't even care enough to hate. All I felt was clarity. She had chosen him. And now, she would live with that choice. I, on the other hand, was already living freed up. Why now? It wasn't just me who saw the cracks. Her own family started calling. Her mother reached out first, her voice heavy with disappointment. She came by asking for money, she admitted. She said Ryan had a big opportunity, but just needed a little help. We didn't give her a dime. We told her she needs to face reality. Hearing that was bittersweet. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated, like I'd won. But mostly, it just confirmed what I already knew. The empire she tried to build with Ryan was crumbling, and she was running out of lifelines. Her father called next. Unlike her mother, his voice carried more anger than sadness. "This man she's with, he's trouble. People are coming to us with stories about him. She's blinded." We tried to talk sense into her, but she won't listen. I listened quietly, thanked them for telling me, and promised I had things under control. Because I did. Meanwhile, Ryan wasn't hiding his frustration anymore. One evening, as I left work, I saw him leaning against a car in the parking lot, waiting. His face was tight, jaw clenched, like he was holding himself back from doing something stupid. "Man to man," he started, stepping closer. "Just stop this. She needs stability, and you're making it harder." I raised an eyebrow. "Stability? That's what you call draining accounts and lying about businesses." His face went red. For a second, I thought he might swing at me, but he didn't. He just spat out, "You're pathetic," and stormed off. That was all the confirmation I needed. He wasn't confident anymore. He was cornered, and she, stuck by his side, was cornered with him. A few nights later, I got another message from her. This one wasn't angry or demanding. It was almost pitiful. "I know you hate me, but please, can we talk? Just for a little while. Ryan's been different. I don't know what to do." I stared at the screen for a long moment. For the first time, her tone didn't sound like the woman who humiliated me in front of strangers. It sounded like someone realizing she'd made the worst choice of her life, but I didn't rush to answer. Timing was everything. Instead, I doubled down on my own preparations. My lawyer and I finalized the paperwork, each signature another nail in the coffin of her so-called future. The financial documents were airtight. The timeline of her spending and lies was crystal clear. There was no way she could spin it. The plan was simple. One final meeting. Not at a cafe, not at my house, but somewhere she couldn't twist the narrative. Somewhere she would have to face everything all at once. The restaurant. The same place where it all began. I arranged it quietly, booking a private room, sending her a neutral message. "We need to settle things. Meet me at La Riviera." No drama in the text. No anger. Just business. And that was what would make it sting the most. Because when she walked in expecting one last chance to manipulate me, she wouldn't just find me waiting. She would find the truth laid out in black and white. Her lies, her debts, Ryan's scams. And the end of everything she thought she controlled. Part of me almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered that night when she paraded Ryan in front of me and called me a mistake. And just like that, the sympathy was gone. What was coming next wasn't revenge out of rage. It was justice out of patience. And it was time. Walking back into La Riviera felt like walking onto a stage I had already rehearsed 100 times in my head. Same chandeliers, same velvet booths, same polished silverware. But this time, I wasn't coming in as the fool. This time, I owned the script. I was already seated in the private dining room when she walked in. She wasn't dressed like the glamorous woman from that first dinner. No sparkling dress, no triumphant smirk. Just a plain blouse, nervous eyes, and a silence that screamed louder than any insult she had thrown at me before. Ryan trailed behind her, still trying to puff himself up, still pretending to be the man she swore he was. But I could see it, the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw twitched. the fear just under the surface. He was unraveling. Why here? She asked cautiously, glancing around. Because this is where it started, I said evenly. And this is where it ends. The waiter came in, set down water glasses, and left us alone. I slid a thick envelope across the table. She didn't touch it. What's this? She asked, her voice tight. Proof, I said. Bank statements, receipts, screenshots. Every dollar you funneled into Ryan's little empire. Every lie, every betrayal. All of it. Her face paled. Ryan tried to laugh it off, forcing a smirk. You think some papers are going to scare us? Please. I leaned forward, eyes locked on his. Not scare you. Expose you. I opened the envelope myself and laid out the pages one by one. Transfers to his fake business. Jewelry bought with our joint account. Spa bills, hotels, even the necklace she flaunted online as his gift. Line after line. Detail after detail. The mask they had built crumbled on the table between us. She shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting from the papers to Ryan. Is this true? She whispered that Ryan's bravado cracked. His voice rose, sharp and defensive. Don't listen to him. He's just trying to tear us apart. He's jealous. But the evidence spoke louder than he ever could. And she knew it. You put my name on this? She demanded, flipping through the documents. All these transfers. My account. Her voice broke. She realized in that instant she wasn't just tied to him emotionally. She was tied legally. Exactly, I said quietly. You didn't just betray me. You signed your future away for him. And now, the court will see every detail. Ryan slammed his hand on the table. The glasses rattled, but I didn't flinch. You think this scares me? You think I care about your little papers? I've got people who already know you're a fraud. I cut in. Because they do. I've spoken to your former landlord, your ex-business partners, even a few very unhappy clients. You're done, Ryan. And the best part? I don't have to lift a finger. You're destroying yourself. He froze, the color draining from his face. She leaned back, her hands trembling, whispering, What have I done? For a long moment, the only sound was the soft clink of ice melting in the water glasses. Then I stood, gathering the papers back into the envelope. This isn't a negotiation. This is closure. The divorce is filed. The accounts are separated. And when the court sees this, I tap the folder. They'll see exactly who you chose over me. I looked at her one last time. No anger, no pity, just calm finality. You call me a mistake. But tonight, you finally get to meet yours. And with that, I walked out of the restaurant. No applause, no cheers. Just the quiet satisfaction of a man who didn't need revenge to shout. He only needed the truth to speak for itself. Walking out of that restaurant the second time felt nothing like the first. The first time, I left broken, humiliated, wondering if I would ever get back up again. But this time, I walked out taller, lighter, free. The divorce went through smoother than I expected. The evidence was ironclad. The judge didn't even hesitate. Assets divided in my favor. Her financial recklessness laid bare. Ryan wasn't anywhere near the courtroom. By then, he had his own problems chasing him. The kind of problems that don't disappear with a gym membership and a fake smile.as for her. I heard through mutual contacts that she tried to pick up the pieces, but the shine was gone. The people who once admired her online saw the truth. The family she leaned on finally pulled away. And Ryan? He was just another ghost in her list of bad decisions. Me? I didn't chase after her story anymore. I didn't need to. I had my own. I started running again. Joined a gym, but this time for myself, not to impress anyone. I went to therapy, where I learned that strength isn't about holding everything in. It's about knowing when to let go. I even started a small business on the side. Something I had always dreamed about, but never had the courage to pursue while I was busy funding her illusions. For the first time in years, my house felt like a home again. No hidden resentments, no lies lurking in the walls. Just peace. And the funny thing? The humiliation that once haunted me, the whispers in that restaurant, the laughter, the phone's recording, it doesn't sting anymore. Because that night, as cruel as it was, became the turning point. Without it, I might still be stuck in a marriage built on lies. Without it, I might never have found the strength to reclaim my life. She thought she ended me. But in reality, she freed me. So here I am, living better than I ever thought I would. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, out of choice. My choice. Now let me ask you, did I do the right thing? What would you have done in my place? If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. Hit the like button and drop a comment down below. I read every single one. Your thoughts keep these stories alive.